Imagine loving someone for decades, believing in their loyalty, only to discover a betrayal so twisted it leaves you breathless. A devoted husband, a trusted nephew, and a woman with a secret that would destroy everything. Stay with me till the end, because this story will shake you to your Darius had always believed in forever. For over 40 years, he and Eleanor had built a life together, one of love, struggle, and unwavering commitment. They had weathered every storm, stood by each other when the world turned cold, and held hands even when words failed them. To Darius, Eleanor wasn't just his wife. She was his best friend, his safe place, his home. Their love wasn't the fiery passion of youth, but something deeper, something unbreakable. Mornings started with quiet cups of tea, soft laughter filling their cozy home. Darius would press a gentle kiss to Eleanor's forehead, whispering, "Still the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." And she would smile, that same smile that had stolen his heart all those years ago. They had met when they were young, full of dreams and hope. Darius had fallen first, and he had fallen hard. Eleanor, with her gentle eyes and quiet strength, had been his everything. They had built a home from nothing, sacrificing luxuries for the sake of their future. Every challenge only made them stronger. Through sickness and health, through hardships and joy, they had remained side by side. Now, in their later years, life had slowed down. They had no more children to raise, no more late-night worries about bills or careers. It was supposed to be their time, to cherish the life they had built and enjoy the love that had stood the test of time. But love, no matter how strong, is only as faithful as the people in it, and some betrayals cut deeper than any knife. Adrian was family, or at least that's what Darius had always believed. He was Eleanor's nephew, the son of her late sister. When Adrian lost his mother at a young age, Eleanor had taken him in, raising him with the same care and affection she would have given her own child. Darius had welcomed him as a son, teaching him how to be strong, how to work hard, how to love with honor. Adrian had been part of their lives for years, visiting often, sharing meals, and laughing over old family stories. He had been there during holidays, birthdays, even the quiet afternoons when nothing special was happening, just the warmth of family. Darius had never questioned Eleanor's love for Adrian. Why would he? She had raised him like a mother, wiped his tears, and guided him through life. But what Darius didn't know, what he never could have imagined, was that the love Eleanor held for Adrian had changed into something unnatural, something that should have never happened. And the signs were there, hidden in the small moments, in the glances exchanged when they thought no one was watching, in the quiet secrets that lingered in the air like a storm waiting to break. Darius had no idea his world was about to collapse, but the cracks had already begun to form. Darius had always believed that trust was the foundation of love. He never questioned Eleanor's loyalty, never doubted her devotion. But love has a way of making people blind, doesn't it? It makes you see only what you want to see, until the truth forces itself into the light. The first sign was subtle, a change so small that most people would have overlooked it. Eleanor, who had always been predictable in her ways, began acting different. It started with the little things, like her sudden interest in her appearance. She had never been the type to care much about makeup or fancy clothes, yet out of nowhere she started buying expensive perfumes, wearing dresses she hadn't touched in years, styling her hair with the kind of effort she had once reserved for special occasions. Darius noticed, but he didn't question it. Maybe she just wanted to feel good about herself. Maybe she was trying to rekindle the spark in their marriage. Maybe. But then came the secrecy. Eleanor had never been one to keep secrets from him. They shared everything, dreams, fears, even the smallest details of their day. But now there were whispers in the night, hushed phone calls that ended the moment Darius entered the room. One evening, as Darius walked into the house, he saw her sitting in the corner of the living room, phone pressed to her ear, her voice soft and intimate, in a way that sent an odd feeling crawling up his spine. The moment she spotted him, her body stiffened, and she quickly hung up. "Who was that?" he asked, keeping his tone casual, though his heart had already begun to race. She smiled, too quickly, too forced. "Oh, just an old friend." Darius wanted to believe her. He really did. But something about her eyes, something about the way she avoided his gaze, told him otherwise. Then came the unexplained outings. Eleanor, who had always been content spending her evenings with him, suddenly had new plans. "I'm meeting the girls for coffee," she said one night, grabbing her purse. Darius frowned. "I didn't know you had plans." "It was last minute," she replied, already heading for the door. He watched as she left, an uneasy feeling settling in his chest. Eleanor wasn't a liar. At least she never had been before. Days passed, then weeks, and with each passing moment, Darius felt his grip on their marriage slipping. He started noticing things he had ignored before. The way Eleanor smiled when she checked her phone, the way she would disappear into another room to take a call, the way her scent changed when she returned home, as if she had been somewhere intimate. The worst part? Darius felt crazy. He told himself he was overthinking, that after all these years Eleanor would never betray him, that she couldn't. But doubt has a way of creeping in, poisoning even the strongest of bonds. Then, one night, the doubt turned into something undeniable. Darius had gone to bed early, exhausted from a long day, but in the middle of the night he woke up with a strange feeling, an emptiness beside him. Eleanor's side of the bed was cold. His pulse quickened. "Where is she?" He got up, careful not to make a sound, and walked downstairs. The house was dark, but a faint glow came from the living room. And there she was, sitting on the couch, phone in hand, whispering words that made his blood run cold. "I miss you too, I know. I just need more time." Darius stopped breathing. The voice she was using, the softness, the longing, it wasn't the voice of a wife talking to an old friend. It was the voice of a woman in love. His heart pounded against his ribs as he took a step forward. The floor creaked and Eleanor's head snapped up, her face turning pale as she saw him. She fumbled to lock her phone, forcing a smile. "Oh, I didn't hear you wake up." Darius stared at her, searching for something, anything, that would make this make sense. But deep down, he already knew. Something was wrong. Terribly, terribly wrong. And the worst part? He had no idea just how deep this betrayal went. Darius wanted to believe it was all in his head. He wanted to trust Eleanor, to hold on to the love they had built over the years. But love doesn't erase reality, and the reality was that something was very, very wrong. The late-night whispers, the distant look in Eleanor's eyes, the sudden secrecy. These weren't just coincidences. They were signs that the woman he had devoted his life to was keeping something from him. But what? The question haunted him, gnawed at him, until he couldn't ignore it anymore. One afternoon, as Eleanor stood in the kitchen, humming a soft tune while chopping vegetables, Darius decided to test the waters. "Who were you talking to last night?" he asked, keeping his tone light, casual. Eleanor's hands froze for a split second. It was barely noticeable, but Darius caught it. Then, just as quickly, she continued cutting as if nothing had happened. "Oh, just a friend," she replied smoothly. You wouldn't know them. That was the first real lie, because Darius knew every one of Eleanor's friends. His chest tightened, but he forced himself to smile, to nod as if he believed her. He had spent years trusting this woman, years building a life with her. The idea that she could be deceiving him made his stomach twist into knots. But then, fate decided he needed more than suspicion. A week later, Darius decided to surprise Eleanor. She had mentioned she'd be going out for lunch with a friend. He figured he'd join them, maybe ease his own mind. He never expected to walk into the cafe and see that. There, in the farthest corner, Eleanor sat with Adrian, her nephew, the boy they had raised, the boy they had loved as their own. Darius stood frozen, watching as Eleanor's hand gently rested on Adrian's, her fingers tracing soft circles on his skin. The way she smiled at him, the way her eyes held an affection that no aunt should ever have for her nephew. It sent a chill through Darius's entire body. His mind screamed for an explanation. Maybe it's innocent. Maybe I'm overreacting. But then Adrian leaned in, whispering something into Eleanor's ear, and she laughed, not the laugh of an aunt. It was soft, almost shy, the kind of laugh a woman gives to a lover. Darius felt his world collapse. He stumbled back, his breath ragged, his heart slamming against his ribs. The air around him felt too thick, suffocating. He turned and left before his shaking hands could betray him. That night he sat in silence, staring at the walls of the home he had built with Eleanor, the home that now felt like a cruel joke. How long had this been going on? Had their love meant nothing to her? Had Adrian, a boy he had treated like a son, betrayed him in the worst way possible? His mind raced through memories, searching for moments he had ignored. Had there been signs long before this? Had he been blind all along? But the most painful question of all, what was he supposed to do now? Because love doesn't just disappear in an instant, even when it's shattered, even when it's betrayed. It lingers like a ghost, haunting the heart that still remembers what it used to be. And Darius knew, no matter how much pain he was in, this was only the beginning of the nightmare. Darius had never known pain like this, the kind that burned through his chest, leaving behind nothing but ashes. His wife, his Eleanor, was in love with someone else, not just anyone, but Adrian, the boy they had raised, the boy he had welcomed into their home with open arms. Betrayal had never felt so cruel. For hours he sat in silence, staring at the walls of their home, the home that no longer felt like his. Every memory, every moment of love, now tainted by the truth. How long had it been going on? Had she ever loved him at all? Or had he been a fool, living in an illusion while she gave her heart to another? The thought sent a deep, searing pain through his chest. But he couldn't sit in silence anymore. He needed answers. That night, as Eleanor walked into the house, he was waiting for her. She barely glanced at him, her fingers busy unlocking her phone, likely texting him. "Where were you?" Darius's voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes before a storm. Eleanor looked up, startled. "I told you I was with a friend." Lies. More lies. Darius inhaled deeply, steadying himself. Which friend? There was a flicker of hesitation, small but enough. "Margaret," she finally said. "You remember her, don't you?" He didn't even blink. "No, I don't, because Margaret moved to another city 3 years ago." Silence. Eleanor's lips parted, as if she was searching for another lie, another excuse to throw between them like a fragile shield. But Darius was done playing this game. "I saw you, Eleanor." His voice was barely above a whisper, but it struck like thunder. She froze. His hands clenched into fists, not in anger, but to stop them from shaking. At the cafe, with him. The word felt like poison in his mouth. Eleanor's face paled. Darius, don't. His voice cracked, but he forced himself to stand tall. Just tell me the truth. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't move him. Not this time. Not after everything. How long? His voice was hoarse, filled with all the pain he could no longer hold back. Eleanor's lips trembled. It wasn't supposed to happen, Darius let out a bitter laugh, but it did. She looked away, as if she couldn't bear to meet his eyes. 6 months! 6 months! Darius felt like the floor had been ripped from beneath him. You disgust me, he muttered, his voice shaking. I loved you. I gave you my life, my loyalty. And you threw it away for him? Tears slipped down her face. I didn't mean to hurt you, his heart clenched. But you did. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally Darius exhaled, stepping back, as if putting space between them would make the pain lessen. You made your choice, Eleanor. Her breath hitched. Darius, please. But there was nothing left to say. He turned away, each step feeling heavier than the last. Because love doesn't die in an instant, even when it's shattered, even when it's betrayed. But sometimes, no matter how much it hurts, you have to let go. Darius stood in the middle of their home, his home, now a graveyard of memories. Everywhere he looked, ghosts of the past whispered to him. The framed pictures on the walls, the scent of Eleanor's perfume still lingering in the air, the warmth of a love that once felt unbreakable. But it had been broken, crushed beneath the weight of her betrayal. Eleanor stood before him, her eyes swollen from crying. She had said everything she could, excuses, regrets, desperate attempts to rewrite the truth. But nothing could undo what had been done. Nothing could erase the image of her with Adrian. Darius inhaled deeply, steadying himself. I need to know just one thing. Eleanor wiped her tears, her voice trembling. What? Did you ever love me? The question felt like glass against his throat, but he had to ask. Eleanor's lips quivered. I did. But not enough, he whispered, the weight of her answer pressing against his chest. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Eleanor reached for his hand, but he stepped back. Don't, he said softly. Not out of anger, but because touching her now would feel like holding a stranger. You meant everything to me, Darius, she sobbed. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the last time, the woman he had loved, the woman he had built a life with. And yet, in this moment, he didn't recognize her. Something inside him broke, but in its place something else emerged. Clarity, strength, the painful, undeniable truth. Love isn't just about history, it's about loyalty, respect. And once those things are gone, love is just a shadow of what it used to be. Darius turned away, walking to the door. Eleanor panicked. Where are you going? He didn't stop, didn't hesitate. To start over. Her sobs grew louder. Please, Darius, we can fix this. He placed his hand on the doorknob and paused. No, Eleanor, you broke this, and some things, they can't be fixed. With that, he stepped outside into the cold night air. For the first time in months, the weight on his chest lifted. Yes, his heart was broken. Yes, the pain would linger. But he was walking away with something Eleanor had lost the moment she betrayed him. His dignity, and with that, he let her go. Because sometimes the most powerful kind of love is the love you give yourself. Betrayal may shatter a heart, but walking away heals it. Watch till the end, because this story isn't just about loss. It's about finding the strength to move on,